And good morning, my beautiful America. Welcome back to the All-American Book Club. I'm Eden Gordon-Hill, and we have a very special guest for you this morning as we are celebrating the Easter season, as we are talking about stories of hope and redemption. We are also talking about religious persecution, the censorship, what is happening in faith-driven media. And I have the honor to bring to the show for the very first time. I'm kind of surprised, but I am so thankful to have Adele Malpass. She is a friend, she is a colleague, she is a huge support to the show and to the work that we do across the board for faith-driven media. She is the CEO and president of the Daily Caller Foundation. And just a little side note, she's been in journalism since she's about 11, delivering newspapers in the Virginia area. She has such a powerful voice defending freedom of speech. So please help me welcome to the show, Adele Malpass. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that absolutely lovely introduction. It is a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So we have so much to talk about. We have so much in common. We talk a lot about religious freedom. We talk a lot about defending our voices in the public square, especially when it comes to censorship. And I want to kick off by something you had mentioned before we hopped on. And it has a lot to do with the fact that we have President Trump in office now. We have 4 short years to not grow complacent, and we have a lot to get done. But we're still seeing this religious persecution around the world and in our country, especially since COVID. We're seeing this censorship piece. I want to talk about the executive order that kind of got thrown underneath the carpet in the early part of this administration, where day to day to day, everything's happening. It's constantly turning over. And it really talks about religious freedom. Can you share? Let's break this executive order down so this audience knows where we can fight.
I'm glad you brought up the topic of the executive order. President Trump has been in this shock and awe. Urgency, must get everything done sort of all at once. And so in early February, within about 2 weeks of being in office, he had an executive order on religious freedom and tolerance. And it is a huge I recommend people go back. It's on the whitehouse.gov website, and it really outlines, it goes through all of the things. We're lucky that we have this document to show his intent of what he wants to do to create an environment of religious tolerance and to really turn the page on the last 4 years. Much of it does outline, what some of the things that occurred during the Biden administration. It starts with during COVID, when people weren't allowed to gather for religious reasons, but could have, you could go. They had all kinds of essential workers. Liquor stores could be open, but people couldn't go to church and pray. And if you had a loved one who died, you couldn't have a funeral and gather and celebrate someone's life. And yet there were all kinds of other things that were allowed. And it is a unfortunate thing. It is really an attack on the First Amendment, what happened during COVID, and there are really a wide range of things that our government put on pause, that many of the pieces of the Bill of Rights, and it needs to not happen again. And that's one thing that an executive order, when it outlines things. And then it talked about going after people that did peaceful protesting at abortion centers and putting them in prison. And he has reversed that. He talked about the FBI going after Catholic,
Yep.
traditional Catholic practitioners who, go to Latin Mass and when you go through, and then it really went into a lot of how religious schools have been pressured with a lot of the LGBTQ transgender issues, and how much people need to be able to practice their faith and teach principles to their children in a way that is consistent with their faith and their values. And so it really is very optimistic for the faith and family agenda that you and I talk about. It really is, when you look at, some of these things are about politics and election, and the evangelical vote and the Catholic vote, and even pieces of the Jewish vote were much stronger for President Trump. And you do see things like this. He's created a faith office in the White House. He's created a special task force that Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, is in charge of. They must give reports to the president on improvements in religious freedom and tolerance issues. So it's all exciting.
No, it really is. And, for the audience in the DMV, They may have been aware, but you sit there and say, us, you being a member of the press, us reporting here, it kind of got swept underneath the rug.
I
Where
will tell
what?
you, President Trump is very exciting, but from our newsroom perspective, it is
Yeah.
hard to cover. He does literally 10, sometimes 12
Yes.
really important things on one day. And, we'll cover Doge, and then we'll cover the hearing on the Hill, and then we'll go back to, he'll put 5 things on Truth Social, and he's a really energetic, president, and it is
Yes.
exciting. He does have 4 years here. He can't run, for a third term. And I think I know they're trying to run up the board a lot before the midterms. Midterms often don't go well for incumbents. And there's only a 3-seat majority in the House. So that one is,
Yes.
truly will be hard to predict. And
Yes.
so I think that urgency that you feel that I
Yeah.
sometimes like, how many news
Yeah.
stories can we cover in one
Yeah.
day?
Yes.
And this is one that I should go back and look, but it was February 6th. I could go back and look and see what else occurred that day, but I'm sure it was really, really big too.
Well, and you sit there and say, well, we have a lot in common. You were at NRB with all of us, with over 6,000 people in attendance to the Dallas convention. And we were there fighting for faith in the public square and Christian communicators to be able to stand up to the censorship and the weaponization of government that we've seen in as I call the Biden years, really, in the past 4 years of what has taken place. And you had the opportunity to moderate a panel on faith-driven media. You had Cheryl Chumley from the Times, you had Bill Abbott, the CEO of Great American Pureflix, you had Raymond Aroro from EWTN and Fox. You had all of these amazing individuals who are fighting for faith and Christian communicators in the public square. Talk to us a little bit about that because it really does align. And it does align with what Trump is trying to do for faith, people of faith, whether you are Jewish like yourself, or whether you are evangelical, or if you are Catholic. It's raising that bar for us to say, we're putting on our punching gloves. We're ready to fight. And I even had that conversation this morning. We're ready to fight because this country was founded on those Judeo-Christian principles of God, country, and family. And, seeing what has been the whole agenda to take out the family, the whole agenda to take out the faith component. You had a front row seat at NRB leading that. Talk to us a little bit about that faith-driven media panel.
NRB is a remarkable event, just by the sheer size and number of people that come. 6,000 people gather to talk about the important issues facing religious broadcasters, and it gets much broader into the issues, the faith and family agenda, what is important to the group and the country. And so there are a lot of common threads that you start to hear about, and the NRB really brings people together to exchange ideas, to think about how to move the country forward, how to create more spiritual values in people's lives, and it is truly remarkable. But I would say this year, I did moderate a panel before the election, and it was for My Faith Votes, and it was much more on the politics of
Yeah.
spirit of evangelical, the different types of voting and how to turn people out. But this one was really much more the common thread, really from what a lot of different groups and broadcasters were feeling is censorship. The inability to communicate ideas, to feel like you can't talk about certain things are off limits. If you do, it's that there's safe spaces for the left, but just nowhere for the right. Richard Nixon once called the Republican Party the silent majority, people that just hold their tongue, let other people say things, and then go
Yeah.
about their lives and practice their faith and family agenda. And so you that there was a thread through certainly the panel I was involved in, but really just talking and having meals with people where you hear what their challenges are, and censorship is really top.
And as you have been leading the Daily Caller Foundation for how many years now?
I've been 3 years here, but a long time involved.
So, 3 years as the CEO and president of the Daily Caller Foundation, and from the state of where you sit in your desk and the sources that you get daily, what has it been like for you on a professional level to say in the censorship space? What have you said? Because you are a huge defender of free speech. So, what has it been like for you to see that censorship intertwined, especially in the past 4 years?
It is all of the social media part for any conservative media outlet is really driven. There's two pieces of it. Facebook and Google are the leaders of it, really.
Right,
I'll give you
right.
some data. Yeah, in 2017, the Daily Caller had 35% of their website traffic went through Google search, and by 2023, it was 2%. And so it is literally, so no, when you think about a Google search, there's page one, sometimes you might go to page two, but the really important one is page one. And they have, literally will only they have about 20 media outlets that are their favorite ones. And it's, of course, the New York Times and CNN and the Washington Post and NPR and Al Jazeera is on there. And they get on page one, every day. And with places like the Daily Caller News Foundation or the Daily Caller, they are not on, their algorithm somehow or another never
Yeah.
seems to find us. And so, and when you really look for, like, we'll have an exclusive story and I'll put literally the reporter's name and headline in the search function, and it won't appear until like page 6. And so that is one way that Google search is a full monopoly. They control about 85% of the market. And I will say, hopefully or optimistically,
Yeah.
ChatGPT and AI are giving Google a hard time. And so,
Yes.
I do think some competition is on the way. And I do think at the moment, places like ChatGPT can, feel a little less biased than Google search. And Google also owns YouTube. And so
Yeah.
YouTube is, that was much of a discussion of our panel at NRB, because YouTube is really important, and YouTube TV is becoming even more important. So as people are cutting the cords to their cable, they are buying the YouTube TV subscription. They have the football, they have
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Sunday ticket part of they have the football on Sunday, and that has really helped YouTube TV skyrocket. But in the meantime, they really do censor. And one thing on the panel was Bill Abbott, who's with Great American Media Family, and he has an amazing background. He, was at the Hallmark Channel, which Crown Media, and
Yes.
really believes in faith and family content
Mhm.
and having spiritual messages in entertainment and content. And but he has been censored off of YouTube and certainly YouTube TV. He is partnering with, establishment, ones like Sony. And even with that, he has been a brave, he's had to
Yes.
stick up to the corporate left over and over again. And, it proudly has scenes of people having dinner together. He thinks having movies with families eating dinner where they pray before they eat or
Yes.
say grace is
Yes.
very important, but somehow or another that is controversial. I always find that amazing. And
I know. I know. I completely agree. Yeah.
he wants to have, romantic comedy movies that,
Yeah.
don't have LGBTQ themes in them, that
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
promote,
Yeah.
marriage and children and romance. And, as we know, love never goes in and out of style. And so it's, instinctive. And so I do think, he's onto something and he knows it, and he just needs to not have censorship at places like YouTube.
Well, I mean, it's voices like you at the Daily Caller Foundation. It's voices like Tori Miller at NRB, and you guys are standing up for those like Bill Abbott who are having to fight and take this hill and fight the battle.
I will say there are quite a few, Elon Musk buying Twitter, with now
Mhm.
X, is
Yeah.
a huge moment for conservative viewpoints.
Mhm.
what's happened is, and it's not gradual, it was happened over the last 10 years where big tech has aligned with the liberal big media and
Mhm.
big government and the Democratic Party. And those four entities have joined together, and that has created the censorship industrial complex. And
Mhm.
with that, we have all these new terms: content moderation,
Yeah.
disinformation, misinformation, cancel culture, and the list goes on. And all of that is part of the censorship industrial complex, so that you have only one narrative. We have, during COVID, you saw how dangerous it was
Yes.
when that forced
Yes.
them joined together. They could defeat any message, and same with the Hunter Biden laptop is a really powerful example of it. In October of 2020, the New York Post had verified that the Hunter Biden laptop was real, and they had photos and everything else that was going on there. You saw the big tech, both Facebook
Yes.
and Twitter at the time jumped in and said, this is fake. You can't, and they censored the New York Post, which is the oldest newspaper in the country. And
Yes.
then you had the big government piece, the intelligence community jump in and write the letter with the 51 intelligence officers that said it might be Russian disinformation. We don't know, but we're all, really well-known intelligence people. And that letter gave Biden the opportunity in his debate a few days later against Trump's to say, no one thinks that laptop's real. And so you really do see the combination in that Hunter Biden laptop of liberal media with big tech, with big government, and the Democratic Party.
Absolutely. I was sitting here thinking I could listen to you talk all day. You are such a wealth of information, but you make it so easy for any audience to understand. I'm so grateful for that. So
Yep.
thank you. As we have about 5.5 minutes left, I want to talk again more about your personal journey. The fact that you were raised in a Jewish family, your family was in journalism, and just how you grew in that journey. Because there's so many young adults in Washington who are listening and who are saying, okay, what are my next steps? And I always say that, we can plan our journey, but God ordains the steps. And you have such a phenomenal example of how God has been with you on this amazing journey that He's given you. So I'd love for you to share about your journey.
I was raised with the most wonderful Jewish parents, and my faith, of course, was intertwined with that. And celebrating Shabbat on Friday nights was just an integral part of my upbringing, and it is for my children as well. And making challah and. My father was a World War II veteran, and very and proudly was part of helping, release people from concentration camps. And, with that, his really one of his most common things was the United States of America is the best place on earth to practice a minority religion.
Mm,
And in that context, it was, just always important to kind of remember you know, y- the combination of your faith, but that how lucky we are to have these freedoms here. And it does get us back to the executive order a little, or where we are with President Trump, to the ability to practice our faith and to have to be able to teach your own children their faith and family values that you want, and that are important to to yourself and to your family. And so I think that, and the NRB is and the religious broadcasters are so important on that. One thing that I was been really happy about Mike Huckabee being
yes.
appointed the
Yes.
ambassador to Israel, and because it really does bring the Judeo-Christian message. It is such a great way to combine the Judeo-Christian message and how important the evangelical support is for Israel, how they recognize the importance of the Old and New Testament, and how together that really is the bridge that makes us different than other countries and other places. And my My parents had in their house the letter that George Washington had sent to one of the first synagogues in the United States. You know, as a copy of the
Yeah.
letter, but it really talked about how important religious tolerance is in our country and how our founding was of that. And you know, my father would often take it off the wall and read from it because it was just really one of the important messages that, you know, that I had growing up. And I do thank you for giving me the opportunity to share these stories.